And welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the KSL, the Korean StarCraft League SummerSlam qualifiers. And we are here with our second series, our second matchup of the night. And spawning in the bottom right hand corner of Neo Humanity, we have the American Protoss player representing Macherino Esports. It is Astrea. And spawning in the top left hand corner, we have his opponents. We have the Canadian Zerg player representing Shopify Rebellion. It is Scarlett. Here we go. Again, a bit of a grudge match between these two housemates. You love to see it. Both Max Angel and Scarlett, they're both living in the land of South Korea at the moment. They're both living in the same team house alongside Future and alongside Zane. So again, it's great to see that they've been living and improving over in Korea for a couple of months at this point. And we'll see how this all comes together here a bit. They do practice a lot together, they play a lot and compete a lot against each other as they are from the same region. So as a result, this series can get weird. It can get weird. Both players know how each other plays. I think that's really important, especially for Scarlett. Just because Astrea, oh my god, we have a hatch pool opener, by the way. But I do think it's really important, especially for Scarlett, because Astrea can be a really quirky player. We've seen him in this matchup go for these really weird 2-base all-ins, these weird, like, even 3-base play where they maybe, like, he goes for, I don't know, Mass Phoenix, for example, or goes for these like, Immortal Sentry timings, slow load all-ins. Astrea, he can be really unorthodox and he can be really unpredictable as a result of that, but I do think that because they practice a lot together, that kind of edge, that kind of X factor that Astrea has is lessened here against Scarlett. I'd like to think so anyway. As Scarlett was basically going gasless. We do have some Lings coming out, Queens as well, but yeah, we are just focusing on purely mineral production, mineral income, and this is something that a lot of Zerg players have been doing here on Neo Humanity. The reason for that is you can afford to cut some corners and be greedy just because it's so much easier to defend here on 2 bases. You don't need your gases, you don't need them anywhere near as quickly as you do on other maps. We've even seen the extremes of this with Dark going for completely gasless openers and going for much faster thirds before taking any gas at all. But for now, Scarlett is going to be mining 1 in gas for the time being. Back at home, again, it was, actually a double gate opener from Astrea. Okay, so with this, he's going to be that much more aggressive. 2 Adepts are rocking up already here, looking to abuse the lack of link speed. 2 Tumors go down. Adepts are going to be shading into the main base, but we have plenty of Queens available. And Astrea is looking to keep the pressure on. This is what I'm talking about. Like, Astrea, he's so... When I say he's unpredictable, with this 2-gate opener, it means he has these first 2 Adepts really quickly, and he's going to have the next 2 and then the next 2 after that. So the Adept count is going to get very high here, and sure, they may not have glaives, but Adepts still need to be respected, especially when you decide to skip link speed. Link speed is very late here for Scarlett, so it's going to be harder to keep up and shut down these Adepts, at least initially, and behind this, it is a Twilight Council opener for Astrea. No boy. Here we go. We're now up to 3 Adepts here across the map. Going to be threatening these shades, keeping an eye on things, forcing reactions out of Scarlett. We have Lings on the way, Evo Chamber for +1 melee as well. Going to be coming up for Scarlett. Now we are up to 5 Adepts across the map. It's going to be difficult for Scarlett to really mine from this 3rd base, and we can see here that, yeah, one of these drones is going to go down. We do morph into Roach Warren. It's going to help, but to no avail as the drone does go down. A couple of Lings as well. Link speed still a ways off. We have 10 more Lings in production. We're now up to 7 Adepts. Behind this, it's not Glaives, it's going to be Blink. So a Blink opener here from Astrea. And again, even though he's not killing any workers, he's denying mining. You know, he's forcing Scarlett almost into an all-in here as Link speed is about to kick in. Lings have been spotted. Drones are being main-arted over. Finally, the 3rd is going to be saturated. Again, this entire time, Scarlett had the workers, but just couldn't transfer them over. It wasn't safe to. As Astrea is looking to just focus down as many workers as possible. 2 drones. Only 2 for the time being. As the rest of the adepts are going to be getting the hell out of there. Making their way back home. And Astrea, throughout all of this, has been able to get his third base fully saturated. He's now ahead in the economy. He's ahead in workers, even in bases. All good things here for Protoss. And behind this, we're going for our gateway explosion. 6 gateways in total here for Astrea with Link. And Scarlett has some catching up to do. Does have some catching up. We have a 4th base on the way. +1 melee is soon to kick in. Lair in production as well. Interesting that there's no Roach Warren. There it is. Now we see a Roach Warren here from Scarlett. A very late Roach Warren as well. Hopefully it does come out in time here to defend against the eventual Stalker push. Here we go. Blink is done for Astrea. Stalkers have arrived, and oh, this base is looking to be cancelled. Can Scarlett hold on to this? We do have some Lings in production. So far, good positioning for Scarlett as well to be able to just corner Astrea. A lot of these Stalkers are going to be going down. Again, just caught in a really precarious position. Stalkers are falling left and right. Now we have a much better kind of situation here for Astrea, wedged behind those mineral patches. At the same time, Adepts, they shade into the natural, and they do threaten to shade into the main base as well. Lings are coming into support at the same time. Oh my god, that's a lot of Overlords. At the same time, as the Adepts distract the Lings, the Stalkers come in, and we do get a kill on the hatchery. A very nice pick off here for Astrea. 4th base being retaken over towards the right-hand side. Tumors are going down in Astrea. He should be able to blink over to the other side of these rocks. Oh, does lose a Stalker though. A little bit of miscontrol out of Astrea, but he saves the majority of his units. And behind this, we have double robot production for double Colossus. Oh boy. The Colossi are on the way. Gateways are being thrown down. Cannon as well. And yeah, Astrea, he's just building up his forces, building up his army. Getting ready for his push. Meanwhile, back at home, Scarlett is actually going to be going into faster infestors. Interesting choice. You don't really see this too often here. Okay. Infestors, I guess fungals, they do help lock down Stalkers, unironically. If a good fungal connects, then Lings can help clean up quite a lot of these Stalkers, but the Colossi complicate things. So we now get up to 4 Colossi. And Astrea is just chilling. He's just getting his 4th base, more cannons, more shield batteries on the way, 2nd forge for upgrades, of course, charge as well. It looks like there's nothing really pressuring Astrea from being active and pushing out across the map. I mean, he's in a better position. Like, he still has a better economy than Scarlett. There's nothing forcing Astrea to attack right now. Instead, just going to be harassing, getting a couple of drones, getting a couple of workers. And interesting, Scarlett is going to be working towards Ultras. Not a bad unit choice, especially if Scarlett expects Astrea to push onto creep. But we'll see if he does. I mean, now would honestly be a good time for Astrea to throw down a Stargate. Like a Stargate, a Fleet Beacon, start transitioning to Sky Toss. That would make a lot of sense for Astrea. But instead, he moves out with his main army. Does leave 1 Colossus back at home. Deflects the Ling run by. God, this is a hefty force. Viper comes out, but not enough energy for an abduction. We have a lot of Banelings on the way. 28 Banelings. Scarlett looking for a surround. Gonna be coming in from behind. Actually going for a counterattack instead. Forcing Astrea's hand. Does Astrea turn around or does he commit? Looks like he's committing. The base is gonna fall. 18 workers. Disruptors are moving forward and they're looking to zone away the Ling Bane. Back at home. Wow, it looks like Astrea has defended. He warps in some zealots. Up! Big Novas are going to connect. GG gets called, and Astrea takes game number 1. GG. The run by did absolutely nothing. It was crazy. I mean, I knew that there were cannons and shield batteries, but Astrea, he was able to warp in some zealots defensively. He doesn't lose any workers at all. And of course, his main push was going uncontested. Scarlett couldn't really stop that kind of massive Colossus Disruptor army. Tried to set up a surround, alas, did not work. And GG. A really solid game there out of Astrea. From the beginning, he did find himself ahead. We mentioned earlier that because of all the lost mining time at the third base, like Astrea was able to get his own third fully saturated, up and running, start working on a fourth. Like Astrea was almost in full control that entire game. And a lot of that, unfortunately, was because of the opener of Scarlett. The fact that she went gasless meant that it did take a really long time for her to deal with those adepts, which usually is fine, but specifically because Astrea went for a double gate opener, he had more units out of the map than normal. And of course, he didn't go for a Stargate opener, which meant that the queens were a little bit less useful. And oh, yeah, it was a rough start. Rough start for Scarlett, but hopefully we can bring it back. Hopefully we can go all the way to the ace match. That is what I'm hoping for, at least. All the way. I hope the Terran wins. The SC2 full. Oh, they will. With Cyclones, apparently. I mean, the Cyclones, the new Cyclone is apparently pretty good. Specifically against Protoss, but we don't need to talk about that. Don't worry about it. As we are getting into our next game, and spawning in the top left-hand corner of Dragon Scales, we have the American Protoss representing Macherino Esports, leading the series 1-0. It is Astrea. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner, we have the living in South Korea. We have the Canadian Zerg player, basically Korean at this point, representing Shopify Rebellion. It is Scarlett. Now, don't fret, I'm sure we're going to be casting some Terran players later on in the evening. We mentioned earlier, but Honmono and Ryung are also in this bracket, and we should be seeing Ryung versus Scarlett later on in the qualifying matches, as Ryung is currently facing off against Cyan. Hopefully we can catch some of the Tuna Terran. Hopefully. Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. As we are getting into our openers, this time a hatch gas pool from Scarlett. This time nothing too crazy, and we're not going gasless. Again, I mentioned earlier that's typically something that you reserve for Neo-Humanity specifically, but on other maps we see more standard openers instead. So no delayed link speed. Aye. Shaking my head at the chat. Shaking my head. But yeah, also for those wondering as well, I know I actually didn't really get to talk about the event too much itself. For those wondering, the KSL is funded by the community. It's crowdfunded by the people in the chat, by the people in the StarCraft scene, and it is very successful. Very exclamation mark KSL in the chat if you want a link to the Patreon page of this tournament. And of course, this is typically a weekly tournament, but because it's so successful, because so much money is being made on that Patreon, they have set, or Dave Tesla and Chickenman have set some of that money aside, and they are hosting a big weekend event with it instead. I mean, there's still the online weeklies, of course, but there's just excess that they can spend on that. And that is going to be the SummerSlam. That is what this is. Based on the performances in the KSL, we have a lot of invited players, and they are featured on the Wikipedia page. So plenty of invites that we can go over later on. But these are the qualifiers, as there are still 4 spots to round out the overall playoff brackets. And we're here to find out which 4 players will join the invited players tomorrow in the SummerSlam. Yes, that's right, I said tomorrow. Today is a qualifier, tomorrow is the playoff brackets, and the day after that is the semis and the finals. So 3 days straight of pure StarCraft action. Oh, it's beautiful. It is beautiful. And again, we can go over the invited players afterwards, or you can have a look at yourself. I believe it's 8 invited players and 4 make it through the qualifier, so 12 in total. Let me just double check that. Yes. So 12 players in total. 8 are invited, and it looks like we already have the seeded players as well. Let's go. So that's kind of where a lot of the players are. That's where all the Terrans are. Cure is invited, Gumiho, Maru, Björn, all that good stuff. Meanwhile, with the Stargate opener, we do have the Oracle dipping into the main base. 3 drones go down. A lot of hull damage was done to said Oracle, but the Oracle does escape. Does get away. And Scarlett is just going to be focusing on re-droning, resaturating these bases. Link speed does kick in, and Scarlett's looking to maybe force a delay on this 3rd. I'm loving that pylon positioning behind the Adept as well, reducing that surface area, and Astrea does not have to come back with his Oracles. We've got 1 on the left, we've got 1 on the right, we have a 3rd Oracle in production. Scarlett, though, also in position with her Queens, is going to be denying any damage here into that mineral line. For the time being, at least. As Astrea's going to dip back in and get 1 drone. Oh, gets 2. Not too bad. As Astrea's going to be transitioning into a Twilight Council, into Forge, into, I imagine, Blink and +1. Blink and +1. As the Oracles are going to be combining together, they're going to be joining forces, looking to go into one of these bases. The main base, there is still no Spore. Bear that in mind. There are 3 Queens, but Astrea could choose to ignore them. Here we go. We have 3 Adepts in towards the 3rd. We have 3 Oracles into the main. Oracles are going to be fended off. Likewise, the Adepts do commit. They commit to the shade, and ooh, workers are going down. 5 in total. Can we get 6? Up. We barely do. 6 drones go down. The Oracles are still alive as well. Shocking around, looking for more damage. Do have 7 Queens between the bases, and the Oracles will manage to escape. And similarly to the previous game, Astrea does find himself with an economic lead. Even in bases, 4th is on the way for Astrea, as Scarlett is getting her own 4th. And Astrea is working on his upgrades, chronoing out +1 and Blink. Now, what I will say is that the early game for Scarlett right now isn't as bad as Game 1. Like, Game 1 was brutal. Game 1 was It was brutal how much mining time was taken away from that 3rd. Speaking of, Stasis Trap is going to be noticed in time, and the 1 unit gets stasis. So Scarlett is keeping up. Roach Speed is on the way, +1 melee as well. Roach is soon to be in production. And Astrea is going for a different composition, which I appreciate. I appreciate that Astrea is going to be mixing things up a little bit. The openers were relatively similar, or like this is like a standard opener, but we do see a Templar Archives alongside a robot on the way, so it's not going to be double Colossus production, not this time. Instead, Astrea, he's going to be incorporating Archons and Storm a lot faster instead. And there it is, Storm is on the way. That's going to be the splash damage of choice. I do think it's important for Astrea to mix things up, or for Protoss players in general in this matchup, to diversify throughout the course of a series. Keep the Zerg players guessing. For now, Scarlett is going to be committing to Lingbane Roach Ravager. which does make plenty of sense. And Scarlett will be the first to, or should be the first to max out in terms of supply. Good revelation from Astrea. He confirms the saturation on the 4th. Oh, and he will be taking down that queen as well. Oh my god. Does lose an oracle. Astrea did fly a little bit too close to the sun. Not ideal. As yeah, he's building up his immortal count. Should be working towards Archons momentarily once we have enough energy for storms. But Scarlett is going to be pushing first. And despite the revelation earlier, Astrea, he doesn't see this. He doesn't see this coming ahead of time. Does have cannons in position. Does have storms available. But Astrea is lacking map vision right now. As the observer was bypassed, and here we go. Scarlett pushing through towards that 3rd base. Big storm is going to fend Scarlett off, but the Banelings, there are so many of them. I love that we're spreading out the Banelings here, going in just bit at a time. Here we go. It looks like we have 2 storms left. The storms had been used up, but they take down the Lingbane. The majority of the Lingbane army did just go down, but we have plenty of roaches behind this. Is it going to be enough? The oracles do come back home to defend. The immortal did go down. Another immortal's looking very exposed. But it is going to be enough. The oracles do so much here in the skies, and Astrea holds. The other impressive thing is that Astrea didn't lose any workers. His probe count was left completely untouched. Shield batteries are being replaced, cannons as well. Scarlett is getting ready for the second wave, but this time Astrea is going to be ready for it. But he needs time. He just warped in some High Templar, and they are not ready with storms. They need more time here to gather up energy to get ready for at least 1 storm each. Well, the push is going to get spotted. Astrea is going to be able to rotate over. He's going to be able to keep up with the movement of Scarlett. Likewise, he's going for a Zealot Rabbi, but Scarlett is able to keep up with that as well. Has roaches in position. And we have a game. Scarlett is about to remax. Astrea making 2 immortals. Was making 2 immortals at a time. That immortal count's getting quite hefty. But I do think we're lacking in whether it's disruptors or colossi. I do think we need some support here other than just storms. And here we go. The Banelings, they do crash on in. The probes. The probes are pulled back, so 7 workers are going to be going down. Likewise, the immortals are looking exposed as well. They are, oh god, they're losing their shields. They're losing their shields, and Scarlett is crashing on in. At the same time, she tries to push in on the right-hand side, but alas, is forced back. Astrea is going to be able to hold on, but these were not the most efficient trades. As you can see here, 46 lings, the Banelings, 13 roaches, but 3 immortals went down. That's the big thing that I was looking at. The immortal count was being reset. And that's kind of in this current composition that Astrea is working with, the immortals are the backbone of his army. He needs them desperately. He's making 2 more at a time to try to replace them, but before that happens, Scarlett, she's remaxed. She's coming in again. We don't have enough energy for Storm. Storms are not available. The immortals are looking exposed. And Scarlett is breaking the 3rd base. You can see Astrea just rotating on over, but it may just be too late. As Scarlett gets into the mineral line, and it looks like we are getting an ace match. We're gonna be going to game 3. Astrea plummeting in supply. Loses his 3rd. Does have a 4th up and running, yes, but Scarlett, her economy has been left untouched this entire time. Again, the defense for Astrea was on a knife's edge, and alas, barely was not able to pull it off. It's a bit of a subtle thing, but like every fight, it was 1 or 2 additional immortals going down. The High Templar going down as well. Just became a little bit too much over time. Even here, the storms are good, but there's not enough to protect the immortals. Scarlett is snowballing out of control. Behind this, we have a hive on the way to get into Vipers, to start working towards ultras or lurker tech. Scarlett has options. And Astrea is struggling to resaturate his third. The creep at this point is looking pretty insane. There's creep everywhere, Poppy. Aye, aye, aye. Prism tries to go into the main base, but there are queens waiting for it. Oh, the High Templar goes down. The army isn't large enough here to protect both bases. Astrea is being spread thin. If he does rotate over towards his fourth, then he exposes himself and Scarlett can push in. There we go, the moment that Scarlett was waiting for. Once again, splitting up those banelings. Rolling in, getting on top of the High Templar, on top of the Immortals as well. And this is the last stand of Astrea. There's almost nothing left. Good Storm. The Storm is not going to be good enough. As Scarlett has broken the third base for a second time. The fourth was actually standing strong. Like, the workers are left untouched, but GG gets called, and Scarlett takes game number 2. We have an ace match. We are going to game 3. Oh, let's go. Let us go. We are going to game 3, and at least that's what I wanted out of this series. Regardless of who wins, I wanted us to go all the way to game 3. And yeah, it's always great to see a little bit of a peek into the form of both Astrea and Scarlett. Of course, we're nearing DreamHack Winter. We're nearing DreamHack Atlanta, I should say, in a couple of months at the end of October. And if you recall, it was a while ago at this point. I know it may be in the back of our minds, but Astrea did claim the victory, and he was crowned the best player in North America during DreamHack Summer, of course. The best player of his region, taking that crown from Neeb, as Neeb is retired at this point. But clearly, Scarlett can go toe-to-toe with Astrea, and it can bring him down on a good day. So we'll see. We'll see who is able to take it. And if either one of these players can represent and be part of KSL, the SummerSlam. Fingers crossed, Bobby. Fingers crossed. That's what I want, at least. I mean, to be fair, they both have a chance. It is double elimination, of course. Both have a chance. But we shall see as we are loading into game 3. It's going to be on Gressman. Let's go. And spawning in the top left-hand corner of Gressman, we have the American Protoss player representing Matcherino Esports. It is Astrea. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the Canadian Zerg player representing Shopify Rebellion. It is Scarlett. Oh my god. Oh, we're clowning, Bobby. We're clowning. As Scarlett is going to be sending her first drone across the map and is going to be looking to throw down a proxy hatchery. Let's go. So for those wondering, if you're a bit of a memer out there, if you're a bit of a cheeser, if you want to, you know, if you're a bit of a cheddar enjoyer, this is the best map for this. The reason why is because, one, there's no ramp coming into the natural on the low ground, at the natural base, of course, so you don't have to worry about high ground vision. Likewise, the entryway into the natural is very wide open, it's very big, it's very large, compared to any other map, so Gressman is the best map for a proxy hatch specifically, and the hatch is on the way. Meanwhile, Astrea confirms this. He comes in, he confirms that, held up, your natural base is missing. You're going for a hatch gas pool. Where is it? Checks the triangular third base, nothing there. Astrea may just check the linear third as well, just to confirm. As he dips out, and he does spot that hatchery. Forge is on the way immediately, and Astrea is reacting, he's responding. So, if you're on the receiving end, if you're a Protoss player, this is happening. The Forge is paramount, because we have very limited production. Astrea has very limited access to how many units he can make, so we need the Forge because we need cannons and shield batteries to help support the Zealots and the Stalkers. We need as much firepower as we can get. There's a first shield battery. We should be seeing a cannon momentarily as well. The Zealot has arrived. Spine Crawler is in production for Scarlett. Astrea does see it. He wants to try to get on top of that Spine Crawler. Will be able to do so with at least one of these Zealots. There we go. Does force a cancel. Back at home, Scarlett does throw down a base. Interesting that she didn't bring additional drones here. We do still have... Yeah, actually, Scarlett looks like she's giving up on this. Interesting. Okay. So again, this is typically a spine rush, but yeah, she's transitioning. This is going to be a rough transition for Scarlett, by the way. She's forcing a big reaction, yes, but... And she's going to have to try to spread creep backwards from here. That's the ideal situation. That we go, the first tumor is thrown down. Scarlett is double expanding. The probe confirms this as well. Confirms at least one of the bases. So Astrea now knows that Scarlett is backing off. And I would say that Astrea is probably in a better position right now. Scarlett's drone count is abysmal. We've only got 21 workers and we're not even mining from the natural. First two adepts are moving out across the map. Link speed is about to kick in, so these adepts shouldn't get too much done. We have 6 more links in production and Scarlett should be able to minimize her losses. Hopefully. As the adepts do shade into the main, there are a lot of drones here in the main base. Oof. Forcing a lot of lost mining time. Astrea does pull back. And at least we do have these active tumors. We're going to be able to spread them and make it very annoying here for Astrea to expand and actually have a free early game. Scarlett's going to have eyes on everything. Meanwhile, Astrea is going to be transitioning into Glaive Adepts. I think this is really smart. I think this is smart because Scarlett is droning heavily right now to try to catch up and is going to be cutting corners. No additional gas is being mined. There's no reason to throw down a Roach Horn right now. Scarlett is in some trouble. With only queens and links to defend, Glaive Adepts are going to wreak havoc. She needs to figure out what's happening soon because this is not just Glaive Adepts. We have 4 gates in the main. We have 1 at the natural. This is going to be 5 gate Glaive Adept. We could even go up to 6 gate Glaive Adepts, which is basically a 2 base all in. The Adepts are being hidden, and Scarlett has no idea. Now, she does have creep, which is going to give her a little bit of forewarning. Third base is on the way. There we go. Immediately, Roach Warren is thrown down. Spores are cancelled. Gases are being mined. Yep, and Spine Crawlers are thrown down. Scarlett is aware that she's going to have a really hard time defending against these Adepts, and the Spine Crawlers will help. Here we go. It looks like Astrea is taking his time. It looks like he's going to be macroing out of this. He isn't going to commit to pure Glaive Adepts, which I do think that this would have worked, but alas, he's going to be taking his time instead, cleaning up all these tumors and taking control of the map. As he moves out, we do have a massive amount of links moving out as well. We get the unit side. We have 16 Adepts. Ooh, and a lot of links are being shaved off. But that doesn't matter so much because we have Roaches. We have Roaches, we have the Spine in the main. We only have 3 Roaches though. They're getting picked apart one after the other. There's not enough energy for transfuse. The There we go. 8 more roaches are in production. The queens are looking pretty exposed. And the lings, they have to respect the shade. So far, Astrea, he's done well trading, but you can see the roach count is getting higher and higher, and Astrea, he has to back off. He has to retreat. There are just too many roaches at this point. And he's transitioning into +1 and Blink Stalkers. Oh, he's taking a worker lead. He's got roaches in production as well, which I think is really smart to help deal with... Sorry, he's got immortals on the way, which I think is really smart to deal with the roaches. Basically, Astrea's getting ready for the counterattack. Meanwhile, 2 adepts do shade into the third base. 5 drones go down. Ay, ay, ay. Only a single drone makes it into the main base and is going to get shut down. And I just realized something interesting here. Scarlett's going all in. I just realized that Scarlett doesn't have a lair. Because there's no lair, there's no roach speed, there's no evo chamber, there's no upgrades. Scarlett is committing here to a hashtag Ling Roach Ravager push. And this is feeling pretty committed. This is feeling pretty all in. She's cutting workers here at 48. Can she break this position? We have disruptors on the high ground. We have shield batteries overcharged as well. More drones are going down. It's all or nothing for Scarlett. It all ends here. Nova goes up. Ooh, a big Nova on those Lings. Roach Ravagers pushing on forward here, but the Lings are being thinned out. And Astrea's getting on top of the Roaches, getting on top of the Ravagers. The Immortals doing so much in the back line, and Nova goes off, taking down 2 Ravagers. GG gets called, and Astrea will take game number 3, taking the series 2-1. GG. Very well done. Again, it was an unfortunate start for Scarlett. If you remember, she started it off with a proxy hatchery that she attempted to transition out of. And because of corners that she was cutting, I do think that it was really smart of Astrea to go into Glaive Adepts from there, force an overreaction, and did so much damage that Scarlett had to go all in the end. And Astrea was ready for it. He had Immortals, he had Disruptors as well. He was more than willing to take a fight on his terms, to take a fight defensively back at home against Ling Roach Ravager. So really well executed there by Astrea. Also, I accidentally clicked on... One moment. I may have misclicked. It's okay. But Astrea does advance on into the next round to face off against Ragnarok in a qualifying match. Oh, let's go, Buffy. Let's go.